Welcome to another episode of the Experience Better video podcast series. I'm Josh Fiekler, a physical therapist.
I'm Adam Leese, a physical therapist as well.
And so let's get a little bit topical today. I saw AJ Green, wide receiver, Cincinnati Bengals, coached by Zach Taylor, former Husker quarterback.
That's right.
But however, AJ Green severely injured his ankle. What happened? Tell us about it.
Yep. And so, like Josh said, he's a pretty darn good wide receiver.
Yeah.
Top 5. And I guess he got hurt a little bit last year.
A little bit, yeah.
Before that, for you fantasy football players out there, you've heard of AJ Green.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they were doing is they have every year they report and they have fall camp, team
Sure.
camp. And they usually do it like the first couple days at a old not high school, but like a college
Sure.
facility,
Yep.
somewhere not on their own practice facility. They open it up to the public can come out and watch. Well, anyway, this year was at Dayton, Ohio. And so they were practicing on their team's field turf, and supposedly, I guess, the conditions weren't very good. And I don't know if you saw the clip of the injury at all, but what he did is he went up for a jump ball, and I think that he came down. I don't even think he came down on the D-back's foot.
Right.
I think it was just the bad field conditions. He just, there was a little bit of unevenness and just rolled his ankle.
Mm-hmm.
And so we call that an inversion ankle sprain, where your ankle rolls in, your foot goes in, your ankle comes down and out to the side.
Sure.
And so it ended up being pretty severe, and he ended up having surgery. Obviously, they're not going to tell us what type of surgery it is.
Exactly. We can only speculate. But.
Yeah, and so I would imagine that it was probably a lateral ankle reconstructive surgery.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means is, as you repeatedly roll your ankle, so anyone who's been involved in athletics, you've had ankle injuries.
Sure.
Every time you roll your ankle, those ligaments, they're not completely elastic. They're fairly elastic, but they don't go all the way back to their pre-roll tightness.
Mm-hmm.
And so say they get back to 98%. Well, you roll it again, now it's 95%. You roll it again, it's 92. On down the list. And so a guy who's 29 years old, like AJ Green or however old he is, probably rolled his ankle multiple times, some more severe than others, but again, you're stretching out those ligaments. So what they do is they go through and they cut those ligaments just a little bit shorter and go ahead and reattach them. So now instead of having that ligament that was 90% taut as it was before, now it's back up close to 100%.
Right.
And again, we're just speculating, don't know for sure if that's what happened. It also might have been just a debridement,
Sure.
where they go through and say there was a little bit of fraying along the lateral ankle ligaments, and they just go through and they just clip off the little portions that are frayed, almost like at the end of a rope.
Right.
Where you get a little bit of fraying, you can do that with your ligaments as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so some of the two biggest ligaments on the outside of the ankle are your ATF, or your anterior talofibular, which just means on the anterior surface or the front of your foot. It runs from your talus to your tibia. No, anterior talofibular. From your talus to your fibula, duh. And so it's just right on the outside. And then there's another one that's your calcaneofibular ligament, and that runs from your calcaneus, or your heel bone, to your talus, which is like the bone that sits in between your two outside ankle bones, what most people think of your ankle bones.
Sure.
And so they provide stability when you go to turn your ankle out to the side. When you're walking, if you didn't have those ligaments, your bones would just fall apart,
Right.
And so it's something that people who have recurrent lateral ankle sprains, or just instability in general in their ankle, sometimes they do have to go through a procedure to tighten them up. But
so if it's a debridement versus a reconstruction, obviously two different paths of recovery and different time frames as well. So.
Yeah, so a debridement likely going to be much shorter time frame. I mean, these guys, they're professional athletes. They're getting treatment for probably 6 to 8 hours a day.
Right.
Just throwing about anything you can at it to get him back as quick as possible. So he'd probably be back before the first game for sure.
Yep.
Preseason starts, next week. And so he'd be back for sure by week 1 of the regular season, probably 2 weeks, be back practicing. With a reconstructive surgery, you have to give those tissues enough time to heal. And so I think they're projecting him to be out 6 to 8 weeks.
Gotcha. So likely that it may have been this type of injury.
Yep, more than likely. Yep, exactly. And I mean, who knows? It may just be precautionary. He's going into his final year of his contract, so they don't want to rush him back and have him lose out on millions of dollars like all those guys get. So
They do.
But yeah, so it's more than likely, like you said, that lateral ankle reconstructive surgery. Hopefully he bounces back and has a good, productive year.
Very good. Like you said, you have to allow time for that to heal, and then you can start kind of the rehab and the reconstructive, or not the reconstructive, but the rehab and the strengthening again.
Balance, proprioception.
Yeah, especially that proprioception, so that you know you can kind of control that foot in space and hopefully not do it again. But,
exactly.
But yeah, so we'll continue to try to keep you up to date with these types of injuries and answer any questions you guys have. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments section. But I got a pretty good story for this week. So recently moved and I noticed our 9-year-old daughter was sitting under. We had this nice big pine tree in the front yard. We've never really had like big trees before. We've always had like younger trees. We've had to plant and stuff. But we got this giant pine tree, beautiful tree out front, and she's been like sitting under it. And I'm just like, what are you doing under it? She's like, well, I really think it'd be nice to have a fairy garden under this tree. I'm like, yeah, okay, great. So I just keep going on, and then then she just starts laying out a little thicker. It's like, just deep sighs under the tree. And I'm like, what? She's like, well, it'll be really cool to have the fairy garden. And I'm like, I get it. Yeah, you want the fairy garden under the tree. Well, we got like 1,000 other things to do before we worry about the fairy garden under the tree. But I'm pretty sure I know what I'm going to be doing this weekend.
Yeah, more than likely that.
Probably fairy garden. Yeah. We'll see. All right. Well, that's another episode for us, and thanks for joining.